Well, hello Internet, and welcome to part 2 of my C# tutorial. In this part of the tutorial, we're going to talk about arrays, 4 for each, string builder, casting, and a whole bunch more. I'm going to be covering all of these topics with a lot of detail, and like always, all the code and a transcript of the tutorial is available in the description. And so I have a lot to do, so let's get into it. Alright, so in the last part of the tutorial, I showed you how to use Xamarin if you're on a Macintosh, but right now we're just going to focus 100% on Visual Studio. Like I said before, everything is exactly the same. Now, I just started a brand new project, and everything here is exactly what you should see. You do, however, want to make sure that you have this guy right here in your code because we're going to be working with string builders, and that is needed. Also, you're going to need to import another module, and this one is going to be System Globalization, and this is going to help us with culture specific formatting, which you're going to see later on in the tutorial, and that's all you're going to need to import for now. Now, something I forgot to talk about in the last part of my tutorial is something that is called implicit typing. Now, you don't always have to, but you normally should go and define what type of data type you want to use for your variables, but you can also come in and do something like this, var, and then let's say whatever, this, you don't have to use this name obviously, and you go and you create a number. Now, C# is going to be smart enough to realize this is an integer and it's going to automatically make it an integer type. And just to prove that that is so, I'm going to come in here now and I'm going to go right line, int val type. And I'm not sure if I told you last time or not how to get the data type for a value or for a variable, but this is how you do it. You go get type like that, and it's going to output whatever the data type is for that guy. And if we run this, you're going to see that indeed, whoops, I was silly. I need to come in here and make sure that that guy is going to stay open. And of course, I'm going to do that exactly as I always do by just going in here and going read line like that. Now, if we run it, you're going to be able to open it and see that it knows that it's an integer based off of the data that was assigned to the variable. So that is implicit typing, and I just wanted to make sure that I covered that so that you did know how to use it. But like I said, it's better to actually define the data type yourself. And now we're going to talk about arrays. So arrays are just boxes inside of a bigger box, and they're going to contain many values of the same data type, and each item is going to be assigned a key starting at 0 and then incrementing up from there. So the very first item you put in your array is going to be 0 is going to have the key of 0, and then 1 and 2 and 3 and so forth and so on. Now, arrays are going to be of a fixed size, and to define one, let's say that we have an integer array, and let's say favorite noms is what we're going to call it. We're then going to say new, there's a couple ways to define these, and then you're going to define the size for your array, and that's the biggest your array is going to ever be. If you want to use an array that has a dynamic size, you use lists, but yeah, this is how arrays work. Now, what you're going to be able to do now is go favorite noms, and if you want to get the very first item inside of there or assign a value to the very first one of these guys, let's say 23, that is how you do it. And now we can come in here and we can go and retrieve that same value out of there. Let's go favorite nom and we'll say 0. And if we want to get the value that is stored inside of there, we're going to basically do exactly the same thing. We'll go fav noms and 0 once again. And if we run that, you'll see that 23 does indeed show up. All right, so that's how we put values inside of there as well as get values out of there. We're also going to be able to come in here and assign values whenever the array is created. So let's say we want to create a string array, and it is going to contain customer information, so we'll say customers. Between curly brackets, we would then define all the different values that are going to be assigned inside of this guy, and there we go. And that is automatically going to make it the size of 3 to accommodate those values that you assign to it. You're also going to be able to use var once again to define an array without an explicit data type, just as long as everything has exactly the same data type. So it's going to have to all be integers, all be strings, all be whatever. So then you could also come in here and do this, and that would also be a valid way for us to create a string array. One thing we can do, however, is we could actually create an array and put numerous different types of data inside of it by saying it's an object array. And the reason why is the object type is the base type for all other types inside of C#. So we would be able to say object, and we'll say random array is equal to, and then inside of here we could say Paul, and we could say 45, and we could say 1.234. So there you have a string and an int and a double or a decimal or whatever. We're then going to be able to come in here, and it's automatically going to figure out what type of data we have inside of it. So we'll say random array and 0 in this situation, and then come down inside of here and go random array, and let's go and get the very first one, and then let's go and get whatever the data type is. And don't try to memorize all this stuff. Just use the code I have in the description as a cheat sheet to write your own code, and if you do that long enough, you're just going to learn all this stuff. And if you run it, you're going to see that comes back as a string, and if we would go and change this into 2 and run it again, you're going to see that it comes back as a double. All right? So pretty cool stuff. You're going to also be able to get the number of items inside of your array. So let's come in, do another one of these, and we'll say array size. And then we can come in and go random array. Whoops, hit the wrong button. Random array and length. Let's go do a couple other different things here so that we can see them all at one time. You're also going to be able to cycle through an array, and there's a couple different ways. I'm going to show you how to use for as well as how to use for each. And we're going to start off with 0 because remember the very first item has the key of 0. And you can see here how the length is going to be useful because we're going to be able to automatically, no matter what array is passed to this, we'll be able to cycle through all of the items in any array by just referring to the length of that array. And then we can come in here and do some different stuff. Let's say that we want to say array, and we want to put whatever the index for it is inside of here, and then afterwards we want to put the value that is assigned to that index. Then come down here and just go I like that, and then random array like that, and I like that. And if we run that, indeed, you're going to see not only does it give us an array size, but it's also going to cycle through the array and get all that array information. So another useful thing to be able to do. We're also going to have things that are called multi-dimensional arrays. Now, whenever you define an array, like, for example, if you go R names and 5, this means that we are going to have 5 boxes, and they are going to be stacked on top of each other vertically, up and down. So that's what that is going to be. Now, however, if you would instead come in here and do something like 2, 2, what that's going to do is with this first one, it's going to stack vertically, up and down. And then this is going to say that we want 2 total values from left to right or horizontally. And I'm going to show you an example of how that's going to look. So what we're going to do now is we're going to define an array, and it is going to be 2 rows high and 2 across. So we will say string, and then throw a comma inside of there, and I'm going to say customer names is equal to new, and then this is going to be string, and then I'm going to say that I want it to be 2 by 2, like that. Then inside of here, if I want to define a multi-dimensional array, directly inside of there, I can say Bob and Smith, and then after that curly bracket, put another curly bracket, and say something like Sally and Marks. Whatever. Okay, so there we go. Now we have a multi-dimensional array. Now, if we want to get a value outside of that multi-dimensional array, what we can do is come in here like this, and we can say something like MD value, and then get whatever value we want out of there, and then come down here and go customer names and get value, and we want to get whatever is in the 1, 1 position. Once again, run that, and you're going to see that Marks comes back. Why is that? Well, we have Bob is in the 0, 0 position. Smith is going to be in the 0, 1 position because it moves over 1. Then we're going to have Sally is going to be in the 1, 0 position, and then Marks is going to be in the 1, 1 position. And that's the reason why marks came back as that. We're also going to be able to cycle through multi-dimensional arrays using for loops in much the same way. So we're going to say something like for int I is equal to 0. And we're going to continue cycling through as long as I is less than customer names. And then we'll go get length, which is a way to get the length of a multi-dimensional array item. And then we'll increment that by I. Then inside of here, we're going to create another for loop. And I'm just going to copy this guy right here because it's going to do exactly the same thing. So paste that there. Call this J, call this J. If we want to get the second part of our multi-dimensional array, we're going to put a 1 inside of there. We're going to increment this guy right there to J. And then to output this information, I'm going to go console. I'm actually going to change this to write instead of write line. And then I'll get rid of this altogether. Come down here, tab that in. And then to get this item out of here, I'm going to go customer names like that. And I'm going to go I and J inside of there, inside of these square brackets. And then after that, let's just go and copy that, paste this inside of here. And I'm going to do a write line with nothing inside of it, which is just going to give us a new line. Save that, run it. And now you can see that it prints out Bob Smith and Sally Marks, right, like that. I could have put a space inside of there, but I didn't, so no big deal. Just so you know, and this is something you can play with on your own, let's say that you would go array names like this, and 2, and 2, and 3. What this is going to do, this first part, remember this is vertically, up and down. The second one's going to say how many items horizontally. And then you can think of that as just a matrix or a spreadsheet or whatever. And then this guy's going to tell you how many of these are going to be created. So this is pretty much like saying how many sheets of 2x2 matrices are we going to create. And that's something you can play along with on your own, and that will give you a better understanding of how arrays work. Now what I'm going to do is come in here and also show you for each. So let's go and create another integer array. And I'm going to call this random nums, and I'm going to give this the value of 1 and 4 and 9 and 2. I also want to show you that we would actually be able to come in here and pass an array to a function without any problems. So let's say that we want to do something like print array, and random nums is what we're going to pass inside of it, and then we want to have like a descriptive phrase that's going to show up in the output. Okay, so that's going to give us an error because it says, what's print array? I don't know. So let's go and create that. So outside of main, we're going to come in here and I'm going to say static and void and print array. And it is going to be receiving an integer array. And I'm going to just call this int array. And then it's going to be able to, it's also going to get sent some type of message. So I'm just going to go like that. And then what it's going to do is cycle through using for each, like I talked about before. So we can say with for each, and then int k in whatever the array was passed in here. So that's int array. And what it's going to do is temporarily store each value from the array in k, and then we'll be able to manipulate it down inside of here. And how we're going to manipulate it, is console. And what do I want to do? Probably write line. And then we're going to put the information inside of here. So that's going to be whatever the array value is. And then afterwards, I am going to throw a message inside of there. So, well, let's put the message first. And then let's put whatever the value for the array is. All right, so there's that guy. Whoops. Change this into... and put the K up there. Must have accidentally deleted that. All right, so that's saved. And if we run it, you're going to see 1492 prints out. Okay, so good stuff. Now we're also going to be able to come in here and sort array information. So let's go and do that. Very easy to do. We're just going to go array and sort, and then pass inside of it whatever our array is going to be. So random nums, run that. And you're going to see that it now puts them in numerical order. So that's useful to be able to do. We're also going to be able to come in and go reverse like that. Run it again. Now you can see they're in reverse order from how I put them inside of there. We can also get the index of whatever we're searching for, or a -1. If -1 comes back, that means that nothing was found. And for this guy, let's say we want to search for 1. So we'll say 1 is at what index? And this is going to return some type of a value for us. And to search through it, we're going to go index of, and then we'll say what specifically are we going to be searching inside of, what's the array name, and what are we specifically searching for, which is going to be the number 1. Run that, you can see it comes back as 0 index, and you can also see it's in the 0 index right there. We're going to also be able to change the value at a specific index. So let's say that we want to change it. We can go random nums and go set value. And let's say we want to change whatever is in index 1 to the value of 0. We can go 0, comma 1. And we're also going to be able to come in here and copy part of an array to another one. So let's go and create an integer array. And let's call this the source array, just so it'll be easy to see what we're doing here. And we'll go and put some values inside here. So 1, 2, and 3. We're then going to create a destination array, which is where we're going to be copying information into. And here I'm just going to create an empty array. So I'll go and say it's going to have a total capacity of, or size of 2. I'm going to put starting index is going to be equal to 0, once again, just so you can see what's going on, and the length is going to be equal to 2. Now what we're going to be able to do is come down inside of here and say array copy and source array, where we're going to be getting the different pieces of data from, starting at a specific index. Then we're going to define the destination array and the starting index and the length. We can then come in here and call our print array function that we created a second ago, pass inside of it destination array, and then just to see exactly what we were working at or what we're looking for, put copy inside of there, and you can see that it copied 1 and 2 over into the destination array. You're going to be able to create arrays in other ways as well. Another way is you can use the create instance function. Here we can just say array, and let's call this another array because I'm running out of names that I can use for my array. So we're going to be able to say create instance, and then we can say type of, and let's create an integer array. And then after that, say that we want 10 spaces total inside of our array. We're then going to be able to copy values in our source array to our destination array. And how we can do that is go source array, copy 2. This time we're going to be copying into another array, this new guy that we just created. And what we're going to do is copy the entire array over, and we're going to start putting values in at the 5th index inside of another array. And then we will use for each to come in here and cycle through all of those different items in another array. And here we're going to go and output that information. So this is to demonstrate copy 2, and we want to get each item out of that array and run it. And here you can see that it started putting in at index number 5. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it put in all 3 values from our source array into that another array that we just created. Another thing that's really cool is we are going to be able to search for an element that matches certain conditions that we are going to define in something called a predicate. So I'm going to go and create another integer array, and I'm going to call this num array. And inside of here, I'm going to go 1 and 11 and 22. So there is an array. And then what I'm going to do is create the predicate, or what it is it's going to be a function that's going to return true or false depending upon certain conditions. Let's go down here and create a new function. And I'll make this private, static. It's going to return true or false, like I said before. I'm going to say greater than 10 is what this is going to stand for. And it's going to receive a value. And then it is going to return true or false whether this value that was sent in or not is greater than 10. Okay, so pretty simple function. So let's come up here and use it. Okay, so right after this guy, I'm going to come in and go console write line. And I'm going to say greater than 10. And it's going to come back true or false. And I can go array, find, num array is what I'm going to search for, and it's going to come back with the very first match. So greater than 10 is the name of the function or the predicate that I defined. And if we run it, you're going to see that 11 comes back. Doesn't get to 22 because it only returns the very first value. And of course, it would return nothing if none of them matches. And it's important to know on your own, go and you can do pretty much exactly the same thing with a function called findAll. So instead of find, use findAll. And the only difference is findAll is going to return an array of all the matches. And another function called findIndex is going to return an index of the match. Okay, so that is a run through of a whole bunch of different things we can do with arrays. Now what I want to do is take a look at StringBuilder. Okay, so we covered strings in the last part of the tutorial, and something that you probably are not aware of because I didn't talk about it is anytime you go and make any changes at all to a string, you are actually creating a brand new string. And this can become very inefficient if you are working with large blocks of text. So what we have available to us inside of C# is something called a StringBuilder. And what it allows you to do is to actually go in and change a block of text without creating a brand new copy, which is what you do whenever you're working with strings. So how you create a StringBuilder is you just go StringBuilder, and I'm just going to call this SB, and you go equals to new StringBuilder, and then you define whatever text you want to put inside of it. And it's automatically going to give you 16 characters of space if you do not define how much space you want. If you, however, would like to define how much space you get, you would instead go and do pretty much exactly the same thing. StringBuilder, like that. And here we'll say something like more stuff that is important. And then after that, say that we want to set aside 256 characters worth of space, and make sure you always put the new inside of there because it is an object. And we'll get more into objects here very, very soon. We're then going to be able to come in here and get the maximum size. So let's call this capacity. And then let's go and get the capacity. So we can get the capacity for, well, let's just do both of them. So capacity, like that. And then let's get the capacity for the second one so that you can see indeed that I was right. So we'll go StringBuilder 2, and we can run it. And you can see 16 is the default no matter how many you put in there, and 256 comes back because I forced it to be on 256. Likewise, you're also going to be able to get the length or the number of characters that are inside of there. So you can just go length like this, and then change this to length and run it. And you're going to see it comes back as 11 because that's how many characters you have assigned inside of this StringBuilder up here. You're going to be able to add text to a StringBuilder. And let's just go SB2 just by going append line. And you can throw new lines or whatever you want to put inside of there. So we'll say more important text and close that off. You're going to be able to define culture-specific formatting. And this is what I was talking about way up here. This guy right here, globalization. That's the guy that we are going to use for this. So we're going to go culture info. And I'm going to say that this is English specific to the United States. And then culture info, create specific culture. And remember I said English-US. And now what we'll be able to do is use formatting. So we can do something like string best customer is equal to Bob Smith, and then go SB2 and append format and English US, and then we can say best customer, curly brackets, and then follow that up with best customer. And that's going to append that formatted piece of information. And make sure you put your quotes in the right place, otherwise that's going to cause an error. All right. You're going to be able to output your StringBuilder in much the same way. So we can just go SB2. Let's just get rid of this altogether and go SB2 to string and run it just so you can see what it is. There you see more important text. All that stuff was added in, and best customer Bob Smith also shows up. We'll also be able to come in and replace a specific string inside of there by going SB2 and replace. And what we're going to replace specifically is text and change it to characters. Come in here and we can print that again just to make sure that works. Going to be able to come in and clear a string builder just by calling the clear function on it. We'll then also be able to append some text to it. So we'll go random text. We could also compare to see if equality exists between two of these objects by going SB and equals and SB2. And guess what? That's going to come back as false. We're also going to be able to come in and insert a piece of text in a specific index. So let's say that we want to start at index 11 and put a string in that says that's great, like that. And let's throw a space inside of there so that shows up inside of the output. And we can run this just to see how that works. You can see random text, that's great, shows up there, and also false for whenever we check to see if they were equal or not. We're also going to be able to remove a number of characters starting at a specific index. So we could go SB2 and remove and say we want to start at index 11 and remove the next 7 characters after that. And sure enough, if we then come in and paste that in there and run it, you're going to see that that was removed out of the string builder. All right, so that is a rundown of what you can do with arrays and string builders and loops and a whole bunch of other different things. And I have a couple more minutes, so let's go and cover one more topic. And that topic is casting. Very often it is very useful to be able to cast from one type to another. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create, and that just means casting is just a fancy word for converting. So let's go and let's create a long here, and it's going to have the value of 1, 2, 3, 4, and let's go and let's create an integer and let's assign it. Well, let's first off, let's go and try to assign num1 to that to see what happens. You can already see there's an error, and it says right here, cannot implicitly convert type long to int. So how do you solve that? Very easy. Just come in here like this and go int, and your error goes away. And we can come in here and verify that everything's peachy keen, and indeed this is an integer by just going in and we'll say something like original and cast. And then for this one we'll go num1 get type, seen get type already before, and then we will say num2 and get type again because that's awesome, and we will run it and we'll see that the original was a 64-bit integer, which is a long, and here it is a 32-bit, which is an integer. All right, so there you go, guys. Whole bunch of random topics I covered today, and I'm pushing forward to cover the entire language as quickly as humanly possible. And like always, please leave your questions and comments below. Otherwise, till next time.